So I became passionate about diversity, unfortunately, from a really pretty shameful scenario.
Shameful. You feel ashamed. Got it.
I woke up to the fact that my team was not diverse several years ago when a courageous woman on my team came up to me after an internal event and said, "Hey, Mike, do you realize that everyone who was on stage this morning was a man?"
Your team was not diverse because a woman on your team pointed out that everyone on that stage was a man. So, men, simply for the sake of being men, are definitively not diverse. Got it.
And I said two really bad things after that. The first was, no, I didn't even realize. I was literally blind to the man parade that was my event.
You were blind to the man parade. The fact that there were only men on the stage did not occur to you as a problem. But it did occur to the woman on your team that having only men on the stage was a problem, solely because they were men. So your female teammate is sexist. Got it.
And the second part, and this has even made it worse, and I'm kind of ashamed to talk about it, but I will, is the fact that I said, no, those are just the people who run everything here.
So at a company event, you had on stage the people who were the leaders of the company. And you are ashamed that you pointed this out to the woman on your team. Well, I can see how what you said might have come across as a bit condescending, since presumably the woman knew who the men on the stage were in relation to the company. But then the woman on your team was effectively calling you a male chauvinist, and so you countered that the men were there because of the merit of their place in the company at a company event, not because of their gender. You got defensive. It's completely understandable. Not particularly shameful, in my opinion, but to each their own, I suppose.
And so what I was completely unconscious to was that I had been making, inadvertently and without malice aforethought, but in any event I was doing this, I had chosen men who thought like me, who looked like me, who made decisions like I did. And unconsciously what I was saying is, wow, he really thinks about these things well, and I really feel like he's coming to the same conclusions that I would come to, and that's good. And what I was completely closed to in my own eyes and mind was the fact that the way that you win is by having your table filled with people who think differently than you, who come from different life experiences, who view the world differently, so that you can push back on each other's ideas and collectively you can come to a stronger opinion. And so thankfully over the last 3 or 4 years, our team has done, in my opinion, a fantastic job of really first accepting that we are part of the problem and that we must wake up to our own biases so that we can open up to the amazing talent in the world. And second, recognizing that talent is really distributed very evenly in the world and opportunity is not. And that if we continue to look only in those same places that everyone else does for great talent, we're going to find a very narrow slice of what the world can offer. But if we expand our aperture and we look for talent in all of the places where talent lives, we're going to do a much better job of hiring diversely and as a result, coming to better decisions around our table.
So, an accusation of sexism by a woman who was herself sexist made you realize that you surround yourself with people you get along with, but that unconsciously you were only surrounding yourself with those people because they were men who both look like you and think like you. So, your shame over actions and decisions you made with no ill intent or malice of forethought are now shameful because someone told you you were, unknowingly, thinking incorrectly. And the only way to absolve yourself of this is to select people to work with who do not think like you do and who do not look like you do. I am I am very curious to know, now that you have had this virtuous revelation and announced your proactive efforts to change your ways in business, exactly at what stage of your hiring and promotion processes do you determine someone's worthiness on the basis of their race and/or their gender? Because, there are laws about that sort of thing.
For me, ultimately, diversity is about winning.
Wow, winning.
We're a company that wants to win. We have a mission and a vision that we believe is worth fulfilling, and we know that the path to get there is through a diverse team that can express their opinions and that can thrive with those different thought processes.
Now, everyone, I want you to brace yourselves, because the most vital of questions is about to be asked within this video itself. What specific steps have you taken to make your team more diverse? And remember, we already know that too many men is already not diverse. And implicitly, too many white men is also not diverse. Now, our speaker including diversity of thought in the process was a welcome notion. But I also then have to wonder if he is associating a certain way of thinking as being inherent to someone's gender and/or their skin color. Regardless, let us see how our speaker answers this most important of questions.
So some specific steps that we've taken to make our teams more diverse started several years ago when some senior women on our team came together to form WIN, the Women's Initiative.
The Women's Initiative, or WIN.
We're a company that wants to win.
Wow, winning.
How very, very clever. So, the first step towards introducing diversity into your workforce is to move away from having too many men making decisions and to form a group comprised of only women. Got it.
And what they advised my team, at the time all men, now thankfully much more diverse,
Thankfully.
on was how to do three things. We believe that the right strategy to change an organization has three important components. The first is changing your talent acquisition process.
Yes. This is the part that most embodies my curiosities and concerns with diversity and inclusion initiatives. So, how did you change your talent acquisition process to ensure a more diverse team?
In our situation, there are plenty of candidates in the world of diverse backgrounds, of different sexes, of different races, of different socioeconomic backgrounds that can do the job and thrive. But we weren't looking in the right places. And in some cases, we were doing and finding the right candidate, whoever was the first candidate. We weren't giving ourselves enough time to look more deeply for the best candidate anywhere. So the first thing, change the talent acquisition process.
What does looking in the right places mean? And what then are the wrong places to look? I don't expect that I will get either of those questions answered, but I am curious. But the other thing I don't understand is what he meant by finding the right candidate was the first candidate. That they weren't giving themselves enough time. I can't imagine he means that the very first person who ever applied to an open position is the person they went with. I guess that's not impossible, but it makes absolutely no sense. So I have to imagine he means their first choice from the initial pool of applicants for a job, which, so far as I know, is generally how the hiring process works. You find the best person from those that apply. But is he saying they just extended the amount of time they keep a job listing active? Or is he saying that once a candidate has been chosen from that initial pool of applicants, if that candidate doesn't qualify as diverse, then they extend the time for filling that position? I'm confused.
The second is change the culture. If you have a scenario where you have, in our case, lots of white men in charge, if we don't wake up to the fact that what we're doing is unconsciously wrong and change the culture, create a more inclusive scenario where people can feel like they belong on our team no matter what walk of life they come from, the culture doesn't change, nothing will change. So the second part's got to be culture.
Too many white men is unconsciously wrong. It is wrong to have too many white men on your teams. It is right, therefore, to avoid hiring white men onto your teams as much as possible. It is then correct and right to discriminate potential employees or candidates for promotion on the basis of race and gender. Got it.
And the third is to invest deeply in the women we have and in the underrepresented minorities who we have. Because what I've come to believe is that there is not a level playing field. I walked around for years thinking that it was all a meritocracy and that everyone had the exact same chance of winning in our environment. I've come to believe now the world doesn't work that way. And despite the best of intentions, it's a harder climb for people who are in an underrepresented group.
Women and minorities are inherently disadvantaged as compared to white men. Got it.
So how do we over-invest in those people to help tip those scales more in balance?
Women and minorities need extra help from white men in order to overcome the disadvantages of their gender and or their race.
The soft bigotry of low expectations.
Got it.
So a change in talent acquisition, a change in our culture, and a change in how we invest in those folks has been the right recipe for us, and it's really moved the needle.
Well, that was very enlightening. Despite mentioning you're wanting to be challenged by different ideas and different perspectives by your teammates, the only things you explicitly mentioned in the changes you've made to your company concern gender and race. Funny, that. And all of this was the result of having a gender-sensitive member of your team convert you into being a gender-sensitive, race-sensitive employer who believes that the only way to create a diverse workforce is to take pity on the disadvantaged women and minorities and disproportionately give them advancement and support because, well, too many white men is unconsciously wrong. This is the message that LinkedIn's Senior Vice President of Global Solutions wants us to know. Or should I say, former Senior Vice President? Because that is what the original video says, even though LinkedIn's website still has him as holding this position. Huh. I wonder if maybe the website is just out of date, and LinkedIn realized that keeping him in that position of leadership was, well, unconsciously wrong.
Unconsciously wrong.
As always, thank you for watching.